Hello, everybody, and welcome to TableTakes. Today is the 26th of February. Yeah, we're still in February. February. Hello, what is time? Time has no meaning. But guess what? We got a lot of stuff to cover today. So we're going to just go ahead and hop right in on those updates. Derek, tell us about the house updates.
It is 1 week since we get the house and 1 week since the spring show. Yeah, anyway. We should be closing on the house in a week. The spring showcase at Gen Con is also in a week. So I think you can imagine the week that I am currently having, which is a busy and generally stressful one.
It sounds like you know what you need to do? You need to just get a large coffee pot and not sleep for an entire week. Seems like a good, legitimate plan.
That would be a lot more feasible were I to drink coffee.
All right. Well, what is coffee not your taste of choice?
I never got a taste for coffee or tea or anything like that. It was all just different flavors of hot bitter water. Like coffee smells great, tastes real bad.
I mean, it's true.
Yeah, and you're not lying. You are not lying. I mean, yeah. Speaking of people burning the midnight oil, Emma, what you've been working and toiling as well, I'm sure.
I guess not exactly burning the midnight oil. If I was burning the midnight oil, then maybe my game would be coming out sooner. But I did. I worked on my first draft, sent it out to a bunch of amazing people, got a bunch of amazing feedback, and I'm actually even more excited about it than I was before. And this is my tea and me cozy tea drinking zine solo role-playing game thing that I'm working on.
You're running out of Zine Quest time.
No, I know. I'm not going to make it in time for Zine Quest, but I'm actually kind of happy about that because I think the audience that I'm going for is... because a lot of people I sent it out to, they're like, well, I don't really know what zines are, but I like this thing. So I think zine, for this audience of people, they're not as familiar with it, so it can be a little intimidating, which I was intimidated by zines at first. So I think not packaging it as a zine and taking a little more time, I think it's gonna be fun, but I am excited and I continue to work on it.
Very, very cool. But yes, we are looking forward to the tea that will be served. Speaking of tea, Emma, or not Emma, sorry, Isabella, you have some tea that you want to just throw upon the wind and burn the village with, right?
Is that how it works? I didn't know. So recently I saw this movie called Minari, which is an amazing film that it just came out through A24. And it's a movie starring Stephen Young, which you might know from The Walking Dead, who is the love of my life, I think, maybe. Like, I don't know what it is where like you see somebody and every single time you see them, dopamine fires up in your brain. I just want him to be happy. I just want to hold him. I just want to make sure that he's loved and that he feels special. And I think I'm experiencing like human love for the first time in my entire life. This movie, like, I'm not going to spend too long on it, but you really have to see this movie. Like, Minari is one of the best films I've seen in so long. And it's an incredibly unique narrative about the American dream to an immigrant family. And everybody in the entire cast is incredible. They're all like it's just such... classified it as being a foreign film, which was so insulting because of the fact that the movie is primarily in Korean, but it's primarily in Korean because it's about American immigrants. Like the idea that no movie that doesn't star like people speaking perfect English, that to me, it was just really insulting. The movie made me cry. I don't really cry for a lot of movies. There's a grandma character that I want to audition for the role of grandma replacement for me. I do have a spot open for a Nana, and I would like to fill it immediately with this lady. If you can find this movie, I know it's hard to watch because theaters aren't open, obviously, but A24 has like digital screenings that you can go on to, and you can watch the movie for like there's like a window where you can watch the movie for like 2 hours. It's available for you or something like that. And that's how I saw it. Please watch it. Steven Yeun, if he does not win the Oscar for Best Actor, first of all, he'd be the first Asian man ever in the history of the Oscars to win. He's only like the second Asian man ever to be like even considered, I think, for that kind of a role, which
Bruce Lee, right? Bruce Lee didn't win an Oscar?
No.
Ugh.
No, it's not Bruce Lee. It's another actor. I cannot remember. He was in a movie about the Korean War, I think. I can't remember what the name of the movie was. But yeah, no, he is so good in this movie. I mean, heartbreaking, empathetic. He's such a good actor. None of you can do anything about this, but like he needs to win the Oscar, and I'm desperate. And if they don't, I know that the Academy is like very sensitive about this because they were like very upset about Parasite winning. That was very controversial. People were very unhappy.
Why? It was a good Okay, sorry. I have
We all know what.
I have opinions.
Yes.
I have opinions about how
it was a year. It was like Get Out won, Parasite won, Shape of Water won, and Moonlight won over La La Land, and people have been losing it over this idea of all these diverse voices that are winning awards. And Minari seems to be another one where people are like, not on my watch. We're not gonna nominate. So
not in my cinematic backyard.
Oh my God. It's just such an incredible movie, and it's so unique, and I've never seen a film like this before. And if you can watch it, please do. And also Steven Yeun is baby, and I love him. Oh my God, my depression is cured. I no longer have mental illness. I just am smooth sailing.
That sounds like something we need to just deploy across the country in every theater.
I think so. I think everyone gets a Steven Yeun. Everyone gets one.
So this is just Isabella's cry for Steven Yeun. After the pandemic, you just knock on her door and say hello. That would just make her.
Oh my God!
I think she might die.
There you go.
I'll explode. I'll just explode into black glitter.
Oh man, I guess that's like really cool news. And speaking, since you are talking about diversifying the Oscars and such, there's like a really cool thing that's happening, right, Isabella, with the new Ravenclaw sourcebook?
Oh yes, absolutely. We're just gonna sail right into it.
Sorry.
But Bunze, how are you?
Oh, me? Oh, I'm doing awesome. There's not really much that I've been doing except my partner, Mr. B, or JJ, has gotten his Kickstarter fully funded.
Yay,
and so very much hype, because we didn't think he was going to get it. And then bam, people just came in out of nowhere, just like pap, pap, pap. And we're like, oh, you know what? Cool. Speaking of it, is just him being his first Kickstarter. Very cool.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's awesome. Congratulations.
Congrats.
Thank you. Yeah, it's not me. I didn't do anything. I'm just like, yeah, supportive spouse, go.
Secondary congrats. Pass on.
Yeah, pass it on. Yeah.
Pass it on. I will. Once like this is over, I'll just be like, they said thank you. But yeah, no. I was just more excited about diversity coming into like all of these various different collections of books coming out.
Yes. So if you are super goth, like maybe Derek and I, you might
hold on. I just need to.
Oh jeez.
Can I finish super goth? Did you make me super goth?
You are a super goth.
Yes.
Oh, that means you got into the house that you wanted.
Right, there we go. See, that was my excited face.
We're both
it's proof
super
I can
goth
be excited.
kids. Derek, that's our brand, is that we're adult goths.
So super goth powers activate. Love it.
Form of sadness. So there's some really exciting news for Curse of Strahd fans that are coming out here, which I'm a huge fan. Ravenloft is one of my favorite settings in D&D, and I love playing it. And I had a huge Curse of Strahd campaign that I did last year. Last year was not 2019. 2020, whatever time period that was, where it raised money for charity, doing that, and it was really, really fun. They're coming out with new material for the Ravenloft setting, including having some really incredible new writers and more diverse voices for this overwhelmingly white European background. And I'm very excited for this because of the fact that this means that there's more backgrounds, more ethnicities, more things, and possibly even some of the more problematic elements to it. Namely, there's some vaguely Romani characters that are included into this setting that might be fixed and addressed, and I'm very excited for that because that's one of my major issues with the Ravenloft Curse of Strahd background is the oh shoot, what's their names?
The Vistani.
The Vistani,
yeah, which is not good. They need to fix that. So
well,
I think didn't they announce that they were getting several cultural consultants of the Romani community to address all of these issues, which is, consultants. We like them. We love them. We need them. We keep them. So that's
how do you guys feel about this?
I'm excited. Especially because it's supposed to have like 30 different domains of dread. So, if you are kind of familiar with how Ravenloft was often used in D&D in the past, it wasn't always just Ravenloft and Strahd. Like, it was the idea that, he was such a weird, evil guy that he ended up kind of getting cursed / set up his own domain of badness where he could continue to be bad or something. And then, it was floating in the ethereal plane or something like that. And maybe you would go visit or get trapped there or something. So it seems like they're kind of taking that idea and running with it, and saying, hey, did you like playing Ravenloft, the campaign? Maybe take some of those ideas and deploy them in a different setting. Like they talked about how there's a twisted fairy tale version. There's one that seems like straight up just Frankenstein. There's a zombie apocalypse one. There's one inspired by Indian folklore.
I'm so excited for this one. This one is I'm dying for this. Yeah.
So it sounds like there's going to be just a collection of a bunch of different twists on the idea of you're in a domain. There's kind of a classic or evil villain monster or monsters ruling that domain, and it's a bad place to be. How do you survive and deal with it? Which, as a general bucket of cool things, sounds like a lot of fun.
And plus, I like the idea of like you step in. All of these are kind of like their own individual islands, in my case, in the fog. And I kind of like the idea that this is a very easy and simple way, even though it's very Eurocentric right now, you can pop yourself into all the various different cultures of ghost, of supernatural beings.
Exactly.
And then figure out that Europe's ghosts aren't as bad compared to the rest of the world.
Yeah.
Where there's no escape. There's just like, you're in there. And you know what? You just give up. Just lay down.
I love that.
Give up.
Because, most cultures have, like, for example, vampire mythos. Vampire mythos is all over the world, and there's the Chinese have jumping vampires,
the Jiangxi.
There's African vampires, there's Filipino vampires. There's so many different kinds of vampires, and it fits so well into that kind of gothic realm. And I really love the opportunity, especially the idea of doing something that's more like Southeast Asian or South Asian or Indian. Like, I love this idea, partly because the Indian vampire from the Castlevania anime was my favorite character. If you guys have ever seen the Castlevania anime, which rocks, it's so good. It's the only good video game adaptation. So I'm very excited about this. One of the pieces of criticism, though, that has been said about this is it enough? Does it go far enough? And the piece that was suggested is this idea of allowing diverse people to play inside of sort of a European a white centered sandbox instead of allowing people of color to create their own worlds. And I think that that's a really valid criticism. I think that this idea that, you know, for so long, it's sort of been like either as a person of color, you have the sandbox of the world in which you can play in, and you can only play in that sandbox, or you're limited to only giving out the kind of cultural references that directly impact you. Whereas for white writers, they really have like limited opportunities to take any kind of cultural influences that they want to, or do any kind of background. I do think that it's a really valid. My only addendum to that would be that I think that people of color should be able to do works that do not directly relate all the time to their ethnicity, and all the time, it doesn't always have to be about like, what background do I come from in order for me to do this, to play this. And I, you know, on this show, I'm always the person who is like, you know, I cannot get away. Even when I'm playing a game, I can't get away from being Black. I'm going to be Black in the game. I'm going to be Black outside the game. It's like a thing that happens. But at the same time, I think I should also be that I want to, and to decide for myself whether or not how I want that to be decided for me. And so my addendum for this would be ¿por qué no las dos? We can do both. We can play inside of other worlds that are more European, you know, and then we can also create our own worlds. We can do it all. It's, you know, it doesn't have to be one or the other.
What I really hope is that these diverse creators that they've assembled, because there's a very impressive list. If you see it, there's kind of a chain going around on Twitter of just people being excited that they're involved, and then other people being excited that they're involved. Like it's really wonderful seeing that support run around Twitter. And what I'm really hoping is that this book will be successful, and people will get a peek into these different perspectives. And then those creators will be given chances to do more and more and more. Like as a first step, this will be amazing. I really hope so.
Yeah. And I think too, just having, I will say often for projects I've noticed being given to people of color, it's like they kind of jam a lot of people in there, right? It's like, this is the people of color thing. It's just like 50 people in there, which I think is good to introduce to more people, but I just want to see this across the board. You know, I think breaking it down, especially these kind of projects where you just have lots of people working on them, I know it can be difficult to manage, but then you just have lots of perspectives, and just in things that aren't specifically about being diverse, you know, just everything they're creating, you know, don't rely on one white person to create this world, you know, every world, just have these level of lots of different people working on it, I think is a good way to make sure that all points of views are represented.
So I do have a Ravenloft question for everybody, because this is something that I've always found like a little contentious with me. With Ravenloft, assuming all of you have played it or have maybe thought about playing it, did you always want to take D&D characters from another campaign and send them to Ravenloft? Or did you want to play characters who grew up in that domain of dread and have to survive it and see what they do?
That's a really good question, because the last time I played it, I took my my character and I put them in there because of the fact that from what I saw around in the materials and everything, it looked like it was supposed to be taken from this very Eastern European sort of background. So I didn't see where my character or how I would fit into that background. So I thought it would be really interesting to take my character and put them into this world. And sort of that. And so that's one of the things I'm very excited about this new project for, because when the material that I have, the book that I have, it just seems like it's a lot of white people. And I didn't see myself in that. So I adjusted it to fix my needs. So, yeah.
Well, I think there's the classic thing is Ravenloft, like almost classically was kind of a side quest thing you would do when you'd have a campaign with long running characters and the mists would show up. And when the mists cleared, you were in Barovia and had to deal with Strahd. And I've always felt like I was kind of the outlier, where I was like, that's 100% not the story I'm interested in, because it seems like such a weird tonal clash of these traditional like D&D fantasy heroes in a very potentially very dark gothic setting, when I just wanted to play, okay, who are the heroes who are surviving in that dark gothic setting? I want to play the locals who overthrow Strahd, not the heroes who show up and be like, cool, we got 20 minutes, we'll take care of Strahd for you. So I was really curious, especially now that we have this list of much more diverse domains to visit, would the three of you want to bring a character from an existing campaign here, or would you want to just do it entirely self-contained in the domain?
Every time I go to a different world, I do have my favorite character that I always like dragging everywhere. That's their own thing. But for the most part, if the setting, especially if it's, I like playing various different characters. I would probably make a sleazy character in this game. If it's a dark universe, I will make somebody who is just like a total person you don't really want to win, but like they're around, they've survived for reasons, they sell their grandma for another chance at life or a quick penny. I just like, that seems like a good thing. I'd bring a new character in and would make them a total sleazebag in the universe.
I don't know, it seems kind of gloomy.
Yeah, but that's the point. That's what makes it fun.
You didn't say you couldn't play the happy person in the gloomy setting. You can do that too if you want.
Yeah, that's true. There's just one happy person.
I'm going to play the person who's disconnected from reality and has some sort of psychosis. So they're just like, in this universe, they're just like, which is actually kind of what I did in my last one, because we were playing a custom world. So that was also kind of grimdark. And I was like, I'm going to be the cheerful person in here. I'm going to say that gnomes have this philosophy of positivity. And I'm not a gnome, but my father character was a gnome who passed on this philosophy where we're all positive and happy all the time. And it clashed with the darkness of the world in a very interesting way. So that's kind of fun.
All right. I mean, we could speculate all we can, but I mean, that just maybe is a hint. Maybe we need to do a Ravenclaw game. That would be my hint. But I mean,
Yes.
there is a lot more news that we have to get through. So especially it's about expanding universes. Isn't that right, Emma?
Yeah. So Magic is traveling to Universes Beyond. They're reportedly getting a Warhammer 40K crossover and Lord of the Rings expansion. That is big news. I mean, they've dabbled a little bit in different universes. They had like a fake one-off My Little Pony cards. They had the Walking Dead thing. Like they've kind of dipped their toes in here and there. But this is kind of all in at this point. Expansions are gonna feature licenses in the Magic multiverse. So they're doing this thing. They're gonna have commander decks. They're not gonna be like a standard set, supposedly. They're kind of keeping it separate from the normal Magic the Gathering stuff that they're doing. So not legal for standard play, widely available. So not just a secret layer drop, although they're kind of grouping it with the secret layer stuff. They're basically making this bubble where it's like, we can do anything here and it doesn't mess up what you're doing over here. So you can engage with it or you cannot engage with it. So kind of keeping it in its own space. What I find very interesting about this is going back to the origin story of Magic the Gathering and why all the cards say Deckmaster on the back of them. I don't know if you've ever stopped and thought about that, but it was because Richard Garfield made this Deckmaster system that was originally intended to just be, like Zombies Deckmaster and Sci-Fi Deckmaster and just a bunch of games under this umbrella. And then Magic the Gathering was just so popular, they just like, well, we're just going to be all in on this. But now they're potentially leading into the universes and system aspect of Magic. So I do like this idea. I think some people are very against it because it's just like, the grognard, like you're messing with my stuff and you're getting in plebs and stuff. So I think the reasons people have for disliking this idea in general are not great. I will say for the Warhammer 40K and Lord of the Rings licenses, and I say this as someone who grew up reading Lord of the Rings and watching the movies over and over again. Like, this was a formational part of my childhood, but it's not diverse. You know, Warhammer 40K is not diverse. Lord of the Rings, I've seen other Lord of the Rings games, and some of the more modern ones do try to shoehorn in women and people of color, but they're just not in the original story. So really the two options they have is to present it close to what people's perception of it is, you know, and not be diverse, or to make it as diverse as the existing Magic the Gathering cards, which Wizards does a really good job with that. Like, I have, just looking at the cards, it's a game that I can play more or less comfortably because, you know, so many of the characters are women, people of color, bodies represented in different ways. You know, it's not just all skinny, sexy, scantily clad women. So like,
they've done a really good job with that over the years.
Yeah.
The busty
So
fighter.
IPs in general, excited about it. I really am not sure how they're going to pull those. Even with Warhammer 40K, you know, I go in there and say like, oh, you know, where are the women in the Space Marines box? And like, they don't have that.
But now you have Sisters of Battle.
I know, but it's just like every box, like, are there no women? It's like, no, they don't have women because let me go into this, like, the 1,000-year-old emperor and
there's the dumbest explanation for it. Like, it's weird. Like, on the one hand, this is kind of the dumbest idea ever. Like, you have to admit that. But like, at the same time, if they come out with a Death Guard deck, hell yeah, I'm buying like 2 or 3 of them. Like, you know, like it doesn't take, if you don't take it too seriously, then it's like, yeah, this is going to be stupid and fun, especially depending on what they get into. You know, like, the thing too is that you know, when you're sitting down at your kitchen table and your friends are playing Magic with you, that you're probably making jokes about all these things at the same time anyway. Like it's neat to see it finally kind of Magic to take the seal off of that. Like, they did that with, you know, the Godzilla cards that were in that Ikoria set, I think. You know, they did it with the Secret Lair stuff. There were the special promo cards for D&D and My Little Pony and Transformers and stuff that showed up every now and then for like charity causes and stuff. So it's neat that they're continuing to mess around with it and figure out what they can do with it.
I'm really interested to see if they do new mechanics for doing a whole new commander deck with all new mechanics, or if it's a complete reskin. Like, that would be interesting to see.
Yeah, well, I'm like, if the commander deck is play some Ultramarines, I don't care. But if they give me a couple different commander decks and like, here's the Chaos Space Marine ones or something like that, then like, yeah, I'm in for it. It'll be real curious how deep they go. And then I'm also really curious, this is the question I had for everybody else too, is what IP would you want to be sucked into the ever-growing monolith that is Magic? You know, like, I actually had to kind of think a little bit. Like, Hasbro already has My Little Pony, G.I. Joe, and Transformers. Like, those are probably all solid bets. Like, can you imagine a starter set for Magic that is a couple beginner decks, all skinned around My Little Pony, all specifically just like, let younger kids learn how to play Magic, and here's My Little Pony, and go do it. Like, that'd be adorable.
Yeah. Do they have anything that's like Universal Monsters? Do they have
I don't know. I mean, they probably could make one.
Well, anything that's the IP that I think it would be either the classic monsters of screen or of literature, or like 80s slashers, and then it would be a bunch of like 70s, 80s.
You just
slashers.
want Freddy Krueger and Jason.
That would be really cool. Think about it; it'd be really cool.
That would be pretty cool.
It would be
monster
just
deck?
as dumb and just as cool as the
I like that idea.
Freddy Krueger does a lot of dream magic, you know, like, come on, it's kind of cool, you know. I don't know, that would be kind of my only sort of a thing that I can think about as far as like what other IP.
Ooh, Emma, what do you?
You know, it would be really cool.
What?
You know what would be a really good fit? You know what universe has like a really extensive lore, lots of spells and equipment and characters, and is just
Can we
really,
just cut her feed down before she
right?
says it?
What is
Is
it?
it-
What is it? What is it?
Warcraft. Come on.
Yeah,
World of
I was like,
Warcraft.
oh yeah,
What?
World of Warcraft.
World of Warcraft.
That's it?
Wow.
What do you mean? What do you mean?
You
That's
knew
it?
that's where she was going. Come on.
What? That's it? That's all?
The lackluster.
That
Oh
was such a that was so
no,
anticlimactic.
I knew that was gonna happen. Yeah.
I wanted to get that was for Derek. Okay, I wanted to get Derek with that, and I did.
No, you know what they need to do is get Avatar as their separate
Oh.
classes in
Mhm.
there, and then
Wow.
have that Avatar deck, especially since they're starting to do more with Avatar series as a whole.
Mhm.
But yeah, no, I think speculation aside, we just have to watch and see what other, of course, IP addresses, or not IP addresses, but IPs start to get gobbled up. And
I want
expansion,
my
like you
X-Men
said.
is what I want.
You want your
X-
X-Men? Your
X-Men would be the one I would pick.
I was gonna say
Mm.
that. I was gonna say that, or I was gonna say Capcom characters would also be
Mhm.
really cool.
Mm.
Oh yeah, that would be good.
Yeah.
But they'll have to work a contract out with Disney.
Yes.
But yes, Marvel v. Count. Yes, we had Whisper in the
Yes.
background.
One of the greatest games of all time. Yes.
Well,
yeah.
I mean, they might have an opportunity just with how gaming is in general. We're starting to see growth in a lot of other areas, right, Derek? Like just like explosion because everyone's stuck inside.
Yep. Explosions. So Hasbro had a big kind of investor call where they had to kind of reveal a lot of stuff about their business. And there were a lot of huge bombshells dropped about Wizards and how Hasbro is organized now.
Mm.
So like the money is just kind of bonkers. So in 2020, Wizards and digital gaming in general made $816 million. And D&D grew by 33%, Magic grew by 23%. So that's incredible, huge growth. But even kind of more astounding is that apparently they made a profit of $420 million on that.
Mm.
So
That's a lot of money.
like that is a real good return on investment. And like in comparison, they Hasbro only made 112 million off of their consumer division, which is all of their toys. So you know the toy division does so much more business. Like I get 3.6 billion in revenue, but they only made 112 million in profit. But you know, Wizards and D&D and Magic almost 4 times that much on way less overall revenue. So it seems like Hasbro is kind of restructured itself to position Wizards to grow even more in the future. So they have 3 major divisions for Hasbro now. One is for consumer products. So this is going to be toys and traditional games. This is going to be where your Transformer action figures are. It's going to be where your Monopoly is. If Hasbro has Nerf, which I think it does, this is where Nerf would be, that kind of stuff. Then there's going to be an entertainment section, and that's licensing, distribution, production for TVs and movies. So like the Transformers movies, Transformers cartoon series, G.I. Joe movies and cartoon series. If Battleship is a Hasbro game, that would fall in here, like that kind of stuff. And then another third, like the third pillar, which you know is being positioned as equal to those, is Wizards and digital, and it's basically driven around D&D and Magic. So this includes both the traditional forms of the games, but also the digital licensing, adaptations, and you know, kind of aggressive pushing that they're doing there for you know Magic Online, for D&D licensed games. Apparently, there's 2 other major D&D games that are currently in production. One from the studio that does System Shock, another from the studio that does Counter-Strike Global Offensive. So, you know, it feels like revenue-wise, structure-wise at Hasbro, and partner studio who is kind of working on your license-wise, D&D and Magic and Wizards have kind of leveled up or gone to like the next order of magnitude almost. Because like these are not smaller studios kind of working on spec to pay their rent. These are big established studios who clearly want to work in this realm.
Mhm.
So this is just kind of bonkers news in terms of scale, and hopefully we can now stop reading headlines about how Hasbro is moments away from selling off D&D or something like that.
Yeah.
At any moment the news will drop and they'll just sell it off to whoever happens to have spare change in their pocket or whatever. Clearly, there were talks about how the D&D movie is just going to be the first step in a quote unquote robust brand universe.
I knew you were going to do something with your I knew you were going to do that.
It's kind of my thing.
I know.
How I punctuate sentences.
I know. It's just, I could feel it. I was looking away for 5 seconds and I could feel your head moving.
Look back. So pretty soon we'll have the D&D CU. So
I'm excited for this.
Mm-hmm.
My only question would be, so there's been growth and to me this has been pandemic led, right? Like so much of this. So then what happens when we're out of the pandemic? Will there continue to still be growth after this? Because I feel like what's happened, how will they market this to a wider audience, right? There is certainly a peak where you can only market to your fan base that you have already, and they need to grow outside of that. So if you have it, it's not pandemic related. We're not, we will get out of the pandemies one of these days. It will happen.
Pepperonis.
We're getting out of the pepperonis, the paninis one of these days. So I think that's the piece that I'm kind of interested in, is sort of like that. Will that growth, when that growth hits its cap, because the audience that's already there, the audience that is already buying, they've only gone. So is that where like the entertainment section comes in, where they're like, let's market this now into a wider audience with the movies and the TV shows and the games and everything like that, to try to get people, for example, like the MCU is like Marvel. The majority of the people that like Marvel don't read the comic books. The comic books, the people who read comic books, that's a very small number. The majority of people who like Marvel, who engage with Marvel entertainment, watch the movies.
And it's also really important to remember, like, that's not bad. Like, it's totally okay to just be a Marvel movie fan.
Yeah,
you don't have to read the comics to be a real fan. Like, people are still sharing your love of a thing, even if it's in a different form. So I think for a long time, people have thought that the quote unquote real way that you make money off of D&D is to license it into movies and video games. And I think that's certainly holding true. But I also do think that clearly we as an industry and a hobby underestimated how broadly successful D&D could be if we gave people a chance to see how much fun it was. And like, I don't think that it's the pandemic driving any of these. I think the pandemic is hindering these. I think that this growth rate is in spite of the pandemic. And I think it's largely on the back of Magic going to a digital format and D&D going to streaming, and people being able to see what it looks like without embarrassing themselves by having to play it first, if that makes sense.
Interesting.
I think one thing that could be a little tricky here is toys are kind of, I don't want to say they're totally safe, but like revenue. Yes, movies and video games have a higher higher profit margin because you don't have to manufacture things for each individual item. Like Magic the Gathering on Arena is such a slam dunk because you don't have to like pay to manufacture the products. For the movies, people rarely even buy physical copies of movies anymore, so it's just like so much profit there, but they're risky. They're saying all these video games, but there's nothing to guarantee just because it uses an IP that game is going to be successful. It's very tricky to find a video game that captures people's attention. The many video games on successful IPs have not been successful. And the same with the movies too. Like, even because people love the IPs, I think the success of the Marvel movies is not about the IPs to a big extent. It's just because they did the stuff to make a good movie. They invested in story and character, and they came back to a lot of the roots of what makes a broadly appealing movie. So it's like there's definitely a bunch of pieces there. I could see this. I know why they're doing this, but I think it's a move that potentially takes on more risk, going away from some of their stable foundation of toys and games.
Okay. Well, I mean, we just have to see how this is going to be. Maybe this is like we've been slowly seeing the uptake of nerdom taking over. We have the revenge of the nerds coming in, and take that. But on other notes, as things of course go up, there are some sad news that does come about. Not everything can make it in this industry. And Derek, go ahead. You can tell us how brokenhearted you are.
Rest in peace.
Well, speaking of video games being risky, as excited as I was about Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines 2 coming out at some point, it has been delayed indefinitely. Not a whole lot of details have been released, but the current developer is no longer working on the project, unfortunately. Like that's basically all they've said is just thanks for your work on the project. We're finding a new developer. Things are kind of frozen for now. There were signs of problems previously when the original lead narrative designer and creative director kind of left, and there were a lot of questions that surrounded that, if I recall correctly. So it sounds like there have been some problems for a little bit, which makes me sad because I was excited about it. But by the same token, I would rather they take a couple more years and make a really good game than to get the game out and just kind of move on to the next thing. So if like there's not a whole lot you can do, I'm sad, but I've got plenty of other games to occupy my time. And we'll get through this trying time together. And at the other end of the tunnel, we'll hopefully have a really good game we can enjoy. But until then, it's just on hold.
And, much like the undead, I think it shall rise again. And I think that there shall be new blood that's injected into this, and it will be revitalized. And
Revamped,
born.
perhaps?
Revamped.
Did it. Thank you.
Well,
I
mean, yeah, video games might not be coming out in some areas, but hey, did you guys realize that video games can start punching their way to board games? Emma, have you got opinions about that?
Yeah, I'm going to excite the audience and then break your hearts. The Stardew Valley, the board game. Stardew Valley gets a board game, a co-op board game from Stardew Valley. It is already sold out, so be excited that this game exists. Also, you can no longer buy it unless things change and they make more copies, but for the time being,
sold out.
Yeah, gone. And in like 2 days, or in a day, or like 2 days, it just went so fast. Not surprised at all. I love Stardew Valley video game. I've put many, many hours into this game. I trying to formulate my thoughts about the board game specifically. The first time that we became aware of the potential of a Stardew Valley board game was when we saw these gorgeous pictures, very much in line with the original video game, and then it turned out it was a student project. So we all got excited, and we didn't end up talking about it because it wasn't real. So this one, it's a little different. The art style, they've definitely gone to a more polished, I would say, art style. It doesn't have that pixel look that's very much a factor of the original video game. So it's a little different. I'm like, okay, feel a little differently about that. My one concern about this, I would say, is Stardew Valley is a simulation video game, and there's a lot going on behind the scenes there. So mechanically, it's just really hard to capture that in the board game without it being like 10 hours. So I'm very interested to see where they come down with this mechanically. It was developed in part by Concerned Ape, who's the developer of the video game, the designer of the video game, and then board game designer Cole Medeiros. So Concerned Ape did work with a board game designer on this. So yeah, I'm just interested to see. I didn't get in on it. I didn't get a copy because I wasn't quite sure about it, but I know some people who did. So I'm interested to see what comes of this.
Yeah, we'll all have to wait and see. And I also was trying to get a copy, but everybody keeps buying everything before I can get a hand on it. I guess I'm saving money. Yes, that's what it is. The universe is helping me save money.
People keep buying the games you want to play. People keep watching Disney Plus, and you can't watch Disney shows that you want to. You can't get a break. We need to all give Bonsai a break and pause.
I'm saving money. That's what it is. I'm saving money. I went to sleep at a reasonable time last night because I didn't have this is all the universe. Yeah, totally.
That's true. I was up until 4 a.m. talking about WandaVision last night. So yeah.
Oh man. Well, I'll watch it later on today. On another thing, we're gonna go ahead and switch up the time. That was our main headlines today. But hey, we want to go ahead on Gen Con, we want to go ahead and highlight some really awesome designers, content creators, and stuff that we think deserve more voice, more love, more highlights. And Isabella, bring us in on the highlight section.
Oh yes, my own theme song. Yes. Finally, I've made it on the show. I feel good. So February, if you don't know, which I hope you do, in the US, we celebrate Black History Month. And I really wanted to do something special for other Black creators. When I started on the show, one of the things that I was very passionate about was this idea of raising the profile of Black people in tabletop games, of which it feels like for a very long time, I did not have a really strong community, and I felt very lonely, and I felt very alienated, which meant that there were some times where I went years without playing any games whatsoever because I couldn't find anybody that I really felt comfortable with. And in past years, I've found a really great, awesome online community of other tabletop players, and I really wanted to share this with other people. These are other people that I think deserve attention, and they deserve credit, and they also deserve resources and money. And I think that's one of the most important things, because one of the things that we talk about in anti-racism is that anti-racism is an action. It's not a state of being. There is no like way of being like, I got my anti-racist certificate. There is no racism bone that you can get extracted out of your body. I know that people keep saying that.
Stamp.
you can't get it. You can't collect your anti-racism coins and then it's out of your body. It's an ongoing action that you do that contributes to something that is anti-racist. And so that's why I put this list together of people that I really, really love. And the first one that I want to start off with, which is a great group. I followed their Discord, and they are called the BGG, the Black Girl Gamers. And I was in their Facebook group, and I could not believe how big the Facebook group was. So this was started in 2015 by J.N. Lopez over in the UK, and it just ballooned. One of the things about being on Twitch, I used to play Xbox games, Xbox Live, which I did. I played it for like 2 months, and then I had to leave because of the rampant harassment that I had on there, which is the story of a lot of women, particularly women of color. The intersection between the rates of violence as far as sexism that Black gamers face, Black female gamers face, and racism really, really distracts from us being allowed to enjoy games and to be able to play online, which we want to do. We want to play with each other and we want to play with other people, but that community has always kind of been left out for us. And the goal, one of the big things of Black Girl Gamers was allowing people to play online co-op games together as Black women and not be harassed sexually, racially, or any other way, which has really been great. The Discord is really, really fun. If you go into their Twitch, they host each other, and they do a lot of co-op stuff. So if you're looking for more Black women to follow on Twitch, more Black gamers to follow on Twitch, Black Girl Gamers is an amazing, amazing group. And I would highly, highly recommend following them because then you get to have this whole community of amazing players online. So yes.
Yeah. And they also do amazingly like a lot of charity events too, as well, that support not just people or women of color in gaming. They also do it for coding. They have it for like just a plethora of things. So
great
group.
And like hopefully after all of this, after the Pret a Manger is over, that they can go back to doing their gamer girl nights, which is they would have these really great cool parties and stuff like that, which I really, really loved. So another group that I also think is amazing is I Need Diverse Games. You might see them online as INDG. And they are a foundation that helps the diversification in game making. And so this is another thing that I think is really important, is the idea of trying to get people to be behind the scenes in gaming. And the reasons of why there's been such a hard time for Black people to get into making games is because there's a whole ecosystem, right? It's like, it's not just about like making, do you have the skills? It's also about networking. It's also about going to conferences and going to conventions. It's also, and that's cost prohibitive, and that's resource prohibitive, and those sorts of things. And I love I Need Diverse Games because they help people to get into the right spaces, to be able to connect to people that could look at their work, can assess their work, and give them feedback, can give them jobs. And those are the kinds of things that you actually really do need in order to get into the industry. Mm-hmm. It's not just about being a good writer or a good, because, you know, Black people are good game makers. It's just about, are you in the right position to get the jobs?
Yeah, especially for the scholarships to GDC. GDC is quite cost prohibitive, and so many people, that's how they get there in. You know, you go there, you meet the right person, and it's night and day what a big effect that can have. So it's super important to support that.
Yeah, Gen Con's worked with I Need Diverse Games. They were one of the key partners for Gen Con Online this past year, and the revenue from the tickets for all the online events for Gen Con Online went to them. So they do great work. They do a lot of work, and it's been very gratifying seeing how much recognition the organization's been, and Tanya DePass, the founder of it, has been getting over the past year or so. So I can't wait to see what they keep doing in the future.
Yes. Yeah. I think this is going to be my message, the PSA that's going out to a lot of things. I've been many conventions. This is my rock in the shoe. Please stop putting them in a corner. Stop putting them in a corner. Put them in the main area. I want to see them there. I don't want to have to like go through several maps. Like at least for PAX West, I know where I can find them. But like every other convention, I have to go find, you know, I Need Diverse Games, like a lot of games or a lot of organizations that support the LGBTQA community. It's just, please stop hiding us in a corner. That's all I ask. Please
yeah, stop putting babies in a corner.
Yes,
that's
all I ask. That's my only comment. I'm very passionate about this. It's just every time I notice this, and I'm just like, don't put them in a corner.
I agree. So speaking of Tanya DePass, though, the next thing that I really want to shout out is Rivals of Waterdeep. Tanya is part of this campaign that streams on Twitch, and it's an all POC cast from the 5th edition D&D, and Rivals of Waterdeep is a really cool campaign, and I really liked it because of the fact that this was an alternative to a huge, gigantic gaming group on Twitch that is very popular and very mainstream and very devoid of melanated people. And I love that they have, which I wish I could have like a black bar over my mouth so that I will not disrespect these people, but I could still say their names. But this is one of the most visible streams on Twitch of Black people playing D&D, and it's full of just amazing players, amazing rock stars in the industry. And this is a really great way of raising the visibility, because I think one of the really big things that that I wanted to kind of highlight is this idea that seeing things, that we can only change how white the industry is if we change the optics, and a lot of optics have to change as well. And so I love Rivals of Waterdeep. Check out their stream. It's really, really fun. Another website that I really wanted to talk about is called blacksci-fi.com. And blacksci-fi.com has a lot of writers and game makers, tabletop game makers behind the scenes as well. And it is all about nerd culture, nerd news, sci-fi news, games, entertainment, and things like that. from a Black lens. And so if you're wondering what's going on with game makers, writers, creators, new things that are happening in the industry, blacksci-fi.com is a really, really great resource to kind of keep your finger on the pulse of everything that's happening in the community. And they've been doing tireless work for like a really, really long time, and they don't get as much credit as they need. And I love it because whenever I'm just like, what's happening? What's going on? What's popping out here? What's going on? I always check their website and they keep up with it really, really well. So I love that thing. So one of the groups that I want to talk about, I want to talk about two different game companies. Capera Publishing, which is funded by Jerry D. Grayson, which makes Mythic, the D6 version, or Bastion, Atlantis, Godson Agenda, and my favorite names of all time for a game, Cowboy Dracula, which is an incredible name. This is an all Black-led publishing company, and they are really doing a lot of really great games. One of the things that I've heard a lot from people is that they just can't find Black games. They can't find Black game makers. They can't find, where are they at? Like, maybe if like you people want to be included in this industry, you people should just make your own games. Well, guess what? We are making our own games. Okay. Yeah. And they're out there. And so, you know, one of the things that, like I said, I've always heard is this idea of like, oh, like instead of allowing, you know, Black people or people of color to be included in a lot of D&D writing and stuff like that, it's like, oh, we'll just make your own content. But there are a lot of really great people who are making their own content. And one of them is Capera, who's done a lot of games. So yeah, I wanted to shout them out as well. And then the next one, you guys have all heard of a little indie game that is called Cyberpunk.
Very indie.
I might be familiar with it. Allow me to consult my notes.
A little indie thing that you've never heard of. It's just a little, you know, a little side thing. You guys are probably very familiar with the Pondsmith boys, as I affectionately call them. Mike and Cody, who, like, I know I talked about this ad nauseum when the video game was coming out, but Mike Pondsmith, I think, really needs to be given credit as like one of the great leaders of tabletop gaming and really revolutionize it. And his son, Cody, is also doing a lot of really great work as well in the industry. And he's out there and they're doing a lot of really awesome work. And I think that giving them credit for their contributions, not just as Black creators, but as creators contributing to the system overall, to the industry overall. I just need them to get their flowers and get their recognition for how awesome their work is. So yeah.
Cyberpunk was genre defining. You know, like the genre takes like it's carrying the name of the genre, but it was also one of the most influential works, you know, really in the beginning, particularly in the gaming space. So it's hard to deny its influence.
Yeah, and I think that Cyberpunk influenced larger culture. I think the game, you know, it's unprecedented to tell how much that influenced our movies, our TVs, our culture at large. And I think that the Pondsmith boys deserve some credit for that. So yeah. Another company that I wanted to shout out is called Here to Stay, and they make t-shirts and different kinds of accessories and things like that for POC, well, not for POC people, but for everybody, but specifically about POC gaming, and all the money that they make from their proceeds goes to help gamers. It goes to help POC gamers. So it helps people who are making games to finance their games. And I think that that's a really cool kind of a thing of making shirts and different kind of accessories, and then putting all those proceeds to go right back into the community and help people make more games for each other. So Here to Stay, created by @Bredo on Twitter, and I love their tagline, which is, "This is to tell others that people of color aren't going anywhere in the gaming community. We're here, we exist, and we're valid." And I absolutely love that as well.
Yeah, Brito has gotten a lot of attention on Twitter. Unfortunately, as is mostly typical with a lot of these kind of conversations, when they end up becoming the target of a lot of harassment. But what I'm hoping is that after being featured enough times for the kind of crap that you have to deal with, enough attention will filter to the work that these folks have been doing the entire time that got them that attention in the first place.
Absolutely. Yeah. So another studio is Darker Hue. This was founded by Chris Bivey, who is well known in the industry. And they did Harlem Unbound, the first edition and the second edition, and Haunted West. And I love their Harlem Unbound game. It's really cool. Kind of like, I don't even know how to describe it. My friend describes it as steampunk. Which I really, really love. And I wish that there were more steampunk kind of things. This is a really independent independent studio that builds community. Chris Bivey does a lot of work. And to get more Black people into game making as well. And I love the name Darker Hue, which, is just really cool. To
go back to like, Harlem Unbound won a lot of awards.
Yeah.
It was extremely well received. If anybody's not familiar with it, it took the Call of Cthulhu Lovecraft genre, and instead of, you're some white investigators exploring the unknown and what's going to happen to you, you were playing people of color, in their community, trying to figure out how to survive these threats from all fronts. Like it very much felt like Lovecraft Country, the RPG, basically. And it's such a fascinating idea. It was incredibly well received. You got a lot of awards. So if there's anybody out there who kind of loves that cosmic horror stuff, but really wants to step away from the heavy baggage that it carries in terms of, racial politics and, Lovecraft's ickiness itself, like Harlem Unbound, really, I think, showed how you can preserve a lot of the stuff you might love from that genre and make something better from it by carving away those problems.
Yeah, that's a really good point, Eric. So POCTTRPGs on Twitter is a really awesome account, and they also have a website as well. And this is another person in the community that I really like to shout out because of the fact that they do so much tireless work. I don't know who this person is. They are not, their face is not on anything, but the work that they do is insane because they are tirelessly working to raise the profiles and to put more attention onto POCs. And this is another resource. So I think that if you're trying to find where can you find more creators, more content creators, more streamers, more gamers, more players, then checking out this person's whole work, all they do is pull all this stuff together for you. So there's really no excuses. Whenever I hear excuses that people can't find them, it's really frustrating because there's people like at POCTTRPGs on Twitter who does this work 24/7. So yes.
Their Twitter account is just great for introduce me to a bunch of creators that I hadn't heard about before and probably deserve a look, and it's fantastic for it.
Yeah. And people have to remind there's a whole world that we're a part of, and there's just a lot of different sections of it. So if you think you can't find somebody that likes that particular thing, I'm gonna say have you the world. That's something. There's the world. There's no excuse. Just there's the world.
Yes. The next publishing company that I want to talk about is New Agenda. And this is co-founded by Misha Bushyager, who started in 2019 a really great thread on Twitter called The 28 Days of Black RPGs. Excuse me. This is a really great thread also to kind of go through who people are and who you need to follow. I would highly recommend to go and find this hashtag 28 Days of Black RPGs and follow every single person that has been tagged in all of these things, because they are all really, really incredible. And these are people that you need to know that are working really hard. And I love that they put this whole thing together, and that this is a really great resource. New Agenda has also done this game that I personally haven't played, but I'm super interested in, called Orun, which is an Afrocentric space opera, which sounds really, really cool. And they have some new RPGs that are currently coming out. And so I put in, hopefully in the chat, you guys will see their drive-through RPG storefront, because they're working on some new games. And I love the combination of African spirituality with this kind of African futurism as well. Because the African continent has a whole range of really amazing diasporic religions and cultural practices and mythos and mythology and creatures and, you know, supernatural elements that is so rife. And the fact that we don't do more, there's not more of that in TTRPGs, drives me crazy. And so I love that they incorporated that.
That's why I get excited every time we see one of those pop up on Kickstarter.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. Oh no, I was just gonna say, rely on the fact, like, yeah, like people need to explore like the African content as it is, because there's so many different ethnic groups. There's so many different, like, it's the most diverse. It's the cradle of life. You know, that's where it is. This is where we all come from. So that's why it's the most like diverse set of rules and things. And you can see where there's some similarities versus other cultures that are around the world. So
there's like 15 different kinds of vampires on the African continent. Like I'm telling you, like it's wild. Another stream that I really, really like is called Plot Hunters. And this is an all POC, all queer led D&D campaign. And I really like the fact that it is talking about the intersection of queerness and POC identities. And all the people that are involved with this are super, super fun and super nice. And also a lot of them do a lot of great work with representation as far as like the LGBTQ plus spectrum. And I think that that's also really important as well to talk about. And the final one is my favorite one, and I'm very excited to talk about this, which is Our Family Plays Games, who they are adorable. And my God, I want them to adopt me, please. Starla and Mick are the cutest couple in the whole world, and they're a family, and they play tabletop games, and I want them to be my auntie and uncle, and I want to go to their house for summer vacation.
Just imagining the found family that you're going to put together with Our Family Plays Games as your aunt and uncle, and the grandmother from Minari as your grandmother, and like, who are you going to pull in as brother and sister? Like,
it's true. And I get married to Stephen Yan. Absolutely.
I want to know about the Isabella cinematic universe, basically.
Yeah.
Listen, I'm just obsessed. They're so cute. They're so cute and they're so nice.
Every time I post or like share their stuff, they're like, "Thanks, fam. I love you," and I feel it in my heart. And I agree. I'm like, I don't have anyone else as warm and loving in my life as you. And they're so generous. I mean, they're just so mind-blowingly generous with their love and time and attention, which is.
They're so warm. They're so friendly. They're so open. And I think that one of the things that I really like about them is that they are becoming such a good face for the idea of who plays games, right? Because oftentimes, we don't see, for example, like, a lot of older women, older Black women playing tabletop games. They're often left out of the conversation about that. And that's one of the really huge kind of blind spots about representation. And I love the idea of a Black family that gets together and plays these games. And I think for a lot of Black families, they do want to get into more tabletop games, but there's no in, right? They're overwhelmed. There's so many choices. What's a good game? I don't know all these different things. What do I need? How much does this cost? It's really, really overwhelming. And that's why I talk about visibility. Visibility is so important because of the fact that you can't be something that you can't see. And I think that a lot of Black families would really, really adapt. I mean, my family, we don't play games. We play card games. We never played like board games or anything like that. We're a big card game family. And I think that had I discovered how to get into tabletop games sooner, my family really would have adapted into that. But we just had no in. There was nobody who was into that kind of stuff where we were growing up. And I wish that I had our family plays games as a kid, because I think it really does a lot for the community. But then I think it also does a lot for people overall to see that there is no one type of gamer, and there's many different kinds of representation of gamers. And the fact that they are such a positive force in the community as well. I never really see they're so open with who they support. They love everybody. They're just really, really great. And that's exactly the kind of thing that we need in a community that is rife with constant stressors and depressing news and problematic people and people getting canceled. We just need people that are like forces for good, and they are truly forces for good. So yeah, I love them. Follow them, please support them. They're so great. And hopefully one of these days we can get them on this show. I hope.
Yes.
Yeah. So those were 12 things, people, organizations, companies that I think deserve attention, not just in February. I think they deserve attention every single month of the year, all year round, 365. I think there is this kind of false thing where we sort of support Black people for one month out of the year, and then we kind of forget about it for the rest of the year. And that's a big shame for me, because of the fact that, Black people are Black all the time. It just magically manifests. I always have this joke that like suddenly people can see me as soon as it turns to February 1st. And it's a shame. And I feel like supporting, it's a constant action. It's a constant sort of a thing. And these people are working all the time. And so please support them year round. And I'm really happy that I got the opportunity to shout out these people and to raise visibility and awareness. Also, I'll say this, now you have no excuse not to know more diverse people. You have no excuse now to not know more Black people. And this was a very short list of a very long list that I had of, I think 30 or 40 other, like the total list that I had all together. I narrowed it down. I tried to get under 10 and it didn't work. So they're out there. They're really, really, really out there.
Yeah. So, if you want to follow the advice that everybody gives, which is, if you want to, have a diverse perspective, if you want to, broaden your community, pick one or two of these people that seem cool to you, start following them. And chances are really high they're going to expose you to someone else, and maybe you'll like them too. And then you can just grow it from there. That's how it works.
And just listen. I think that for a lot of people, it's just important to just hear the diverse voices and to listen to their perspectives and to not make a judgment call about them at first. And also for a lot of people like myself, a lot of Black people, the community is out there. There are definitely a lot of people who are looking to expand the community and to find the resources and to offer safe spaces for exploration, for fun, for experimentation, and to try things. And that's really important as well. Please find your community. There's a community out there for you. And I think that's my big thing of trying to be a better ambassador for the games. Yeah. Happy Black History Month, everybody. Yay.
Thank you.
Also, pay Black people, give them money. So.
Yes. And, this is just a highlight that we're doing this week. There are going to be more highlights to come. So don't think this is the only highlight we're going to get to represent these people. Like you said, this is going to be a continual effort that we have to do as people who want, hey, we can't just talk to talk. We have to walk the walk. So be excited. Look into our Discord announcements later of maybe, later down the line, we're going to introduce and highlight even more folks. Now, you know what? It's It is also coming to the end of February. So guess what? It's Zine Quest, last week of Zine Quest. So let's go ahead and maximize
So
Zine
y'all
Quest.
keep forgetting. You think
Yeah.
Zine Quest is over with, but Zine Quest extends into March because the
Oh,
project
wait, is
can
it? I thought
start
it
at
was.
they can start in February.
You
Oh.
made it
keep
seem like
going.
we had to do it in February, though. You were like, we got to do ZQuest in February.
Okay, so hold on. Remember the
My
rules are
song, though.
the rules are Zine Quest has to launch in February,
Yeah.
which means that an individual project, were Emma, for example, just to pick an example out of the air, were Emma to take her T game and launch it this weekend, it could extend into March. So there will be fewer Zine Quests, and then our hearts will go cold and they'll hibernate for a year until next February. The ghost of Kickstarter future comes and blesses us with Zine Quest 4. But you think a Zine Quest is over, but it's coming back again probably.
No, only expires.
On that note, let's go through the zines that really excited us this week. The first one I have, with 13 days left, so it's going to end on Thursday, March 4th, is The Burning of Carbex, a Mothership RPG compatible adventure. And that's kind of why I was excited about it. And then looking into it, it's 100 pages. It's a 3-act campaign. It's a weird planet that was burned over, and then some coal miners burrowed into some bugs underneath and stuff like that. So and then weird bad stuff happens. That's kind of how this goes. But this is basically a whole campaign, a whole mini campaign for Mothership. So of course my attention perked up, and I wanted to check it out. And you've got 13 days left. Check it out yourself, and join in if you think it looks cool.
All right. With 2 days left, The Door Locks Behind You, a puzzle dungeon adventure. So this is a tabletop role-playing game that is very much like try to think of old school design philosophy and then slap it with a bit of Link and Zelda in there for Zine Quest. So if that's kind of like the flavor you like OSR, you like limited weapons and stuff not being necessarily based on your stats, but the equipment you have, then this is an RPG you're gonna love. It's mainly focusing on dungeons, going into dungeons, and finding these puzzle pieces and hidden levels that are and assembling all of the pieces together to defeat the ultimate evil boss. And then everything in this game is so great to the theme of I am gonna say, when I looked at this, I'm like, Legend of Zelda. So if that's the game you kind of want to play, even even down to the HP and your life is supported by hearts. It's just great looking zine, a cool idea, and it's a really, really, really clean and tight theme. So The Door Locks Behind You. It has 2 more days left.
All right, up next we have Kitchen Nightmares with a K, so it's a pun for Zine Quest.
Is it?
Yeah, it's a pun. 16 days left, ending Monday, March 15th. Voice chat based hidden role game for 5+ players based on This Discord Has Ghosts in It, which is a game I got to play last year, which is absolutely amazing, and I want to have 50 more games designed to spawn off of this because it's such a clever idea. Core concept, this Discord has ghosts in it. For those who haven't played, you're using Discord with the different text channels and voice channels to move into different spaces. The ghosts are posting pictures in the text channel, so it's like somebody stumbles on, they're like, oh, I want to look in this door over here, and then a channel pops up that says attic, so all of a sudden there's an attic channel now, and they go into the attic by going into the test channel, and people are posting pictures and making spooky noises and stuff. So that's cool. This one is a little different because it involves time travel and magic. So the characters in this one are a medieval knight sent forward in time to the wild year of 1999. The wizard who sent them there at the diner as well, and the diner's regular 90s college kids here to have a good time and cause trouble. So it's got a few different vibes going on. It's got magic, it's got time travel, it's got this 90s vibe to it, and same kind of concept where you're posting in different areas and playing completely in the Discord, which is safe and fun now. So very much suggest checking out Kitchen Nightmares with 16 days left.
With 15 days left, ending Sunday, March 14th, is Subtle Fluid. And it's kind of interesting because this is a zine in support of an RPG that I don't think is officially out yet. Like there's a version out on itch. I've been listening to Fun City Ventures, which is a Shadowrun podcast that has been playing through this like post-history, far future, hyper advanced technology, weird stories in the galaxy kind of RPG as a break from their Shadowrun game during quarantine, basically. And there's just so much weird, fun ideas in that game. If you like far future weird sci-fi adventure, I definitely recommend checking it out. This zine is basically a collection of neat ideas, powers, tools, options, whatever, for characters whose blood is infected with tons of nanites. So you have all this weird nanite blood power. And apparently it also is going to come with ideas and rules on how to adapt those nanite powers to other games. So if you're playing a D&D game and, a little bit like, where you want to add a few weird sci-fi elements, this might give you some stuff to do something strange from another bizarre dimension or something like that. Something that the rest of the world doesn't really understand. But Fun City Ventures has had a fantastic time with it. I highly recommend the podcast. The game itself sounds like a lot of fun, and this seems like a neat kind of slice of that you could get into and use in other games if if you need kind of more utility out of it. So you got 15 days left for Subtle Fluid.
All right, with 9 days left, we have Little Cathy's Tea Party. It is a tea drinking role-playing game where you do your best to try helping a little girl grow up. It's a diceless, GM-less RPG where you play as I want to say it's Katie or Caddy. Is it Caddy or Katie? I want to say Katie. Yeah. Katie, you have this tea party and you're all role playing and kind of LARPing this tea party, and you're helping one of the players, and you are their imaginary friends. You're having a tea party, or it's supposed to be like a tea party in real life. There's no dice, I said. Drinking tea is technically the core resolution mechanics of the game. So in case but it doesn't have an actual meaning to it. It's like if it comes up, you don't want to answer a particular question, you just go ahead and drink your tea. They ask you a question, you're like, oh, like that's the whole idea about it. You think oh, this game sounds like it's fun and catchy. It's actually more serious, and it actually does have, it also comes with a lot of red card or mechanics as well with it, that you kind of ask in subtle ways if this is okay. If somebody's not okay with diving in a particular topic, because this is sometimes you go through stressful situations from her childhood memories as you process, and there's some people that play the dark spirits or the shadow spirits that are representing of these events that happened in her life, and other ones are just her Winnie the Pooh trying to help Christopher Robin process, hey, what's this going on. So it is more or less a game about trying to work things out, and trying to explain something that is maybe a subject of divorce comes up, and she's trying to work out hey, my family's divorced and everything, and this is how am I going to process this. Speaking of that, there are ways to be hey, if somebody's not comfortable with this, you can ask about the weather. You can ask if somebody would like sugar or not. So it's just a lot of really cool things, and it's mostly just really heavy into role playing. So if this sounds like your type of game, Little Cathy's Tea Party, with 9 days left.
With 6 days left, we have Fractured Unity. So that's going to end on Thursday, March 4th. And this is an unofficial supplement for Blades in the Dark. And if you've played Blades in the Dark, if you've gotten into the setting, one of the key concepts is that there was a war maybe a generation or less ago, and there's this kind of whole country that's been subjugated as part of the empire. And this zine kind of twists the perspective of Blades in the Dark to play the people who are trying to resist that war and that occupation. So you are playing that country trying to survive the Empire marching in and taking over your land, and trying to preserve your culture against what they're doing as well, set against the larger backdrop of Blades in the Dark. So one, Blades in the Dark gets my attention. Two, it, you know, any kind of twist on that or a different perspective of that world I'm excited to explore. And then three, it's just coincidentally, I'm kind of running an intermittent Blades in the Dark campaign where almost all of the players fought in that war together. So now I suddenly have an idea of doing kind of a neat flashback where maybe they get to play characters from the other side of that conflict and see how they feel about it then. So it just seems really cool to me. 6 days left, Fractured Unity.
Next up, what once went wrong. 11 days left, ending Tuesday, March 9th. A time travel RPG of altruism and discovery inspired by Quantum Leap. So for those of you who might not have seen Quantum Leap, I just have weird stuff in my memory. I'm like, I used to watch that show. It's a show about this dude going back in time or forward in time, just time hopping to like fix stuff. And gosh, I barely even remember this. He was the people, right? Like he took over their body or something. I guess it was kind of a little weird. But it's kind of using the time travel mechanic of like, oh, be careful, don't change things. But it was the complete opposite of this, because it's like change everything. Like people are they ended up with a bad life or something, and you can go back in time and fix their life. And I think it was all so the dude could like go to heaven or something, like fix their own moral compass. I realize now I'm very vague about what happened in this.
So like he was stuck in a weird, he built a time travel thing. He was stuck in a weird thing.
Yeah.
He couldn't return to his time until every time he fixed something, he had a chance to return home.
Right.
The fact that Emma, because I also remember, I was like, I was trying to describe Quantum Leap to a friend, and I was like, because he had a guardian angel that was helping him get to heaven.
Right? Yes.
And the fact that you and I both remember it completely wrong is really interesting to me, and we need to talk about that.
Yeah, I think maybe conflating that and the Highway to Heaven
and Touched by an Angel. Yes.
Yeah, they were just all the same show in my memory. I don't know. But the concept of this, the mechanically, role-playing is really cool, right? You're just like going back, two-player game, telling these stories. And what's cool about it too is that there is a GM, want to use the GM, but that person doesn't know exactly what change needs to be made to fix things. So it's a game of discovery together. It's not like one person's trying to lead you in a direction. You're like, oh, is this the thing? Is this the thing? It's very rules light. The end of important scenes, the time traveler is changing something and dice are rolled. So just looks like it has some cool flavor to it. What one's went wrong with 11 days left?
With 8 days left is a game that if I'm going to describe this, I think you will all see why I immediately leapt for this. Okay. It's called Gratitude, a horror game. So it's a horror game called Gratitude. It's a body horror game. So it wants to examine gratitude through the lens of body horror and cosmic horror. The summary was a storytelling game about trying to please an unknowable god being in the hopes of being able to leave this terrible place. Once you die, and you will die, you might return as a haunt, a pale shade of what you were in life, and then you will turn against all of those you had called friend. So like, yeah, I am definitely in for this. It says it's a game about losing everything and being grateful for what you have. So like, I mean, I don't know if they could have made a game that was more custom designed for Derek gets to pretend that his RPG is going to be high art for a couple hours than this. So how can you resist it? You got 8 days to resist it.
All right. It's a bibliography of zine quests with 5 days left, ending Thursday, March 4th. This is the meta zine that packages and describes all other zines before and since. It's being done by Ninth Level Games, who are some of my favorite people in the publishing space. They do just super fun and amazing stuff. It's going to be an index, but also I think it's going to have some factoids and maybe awards and stuff. So just something fun to celebrate all of these zines, and also I think it's kind of cool just to track them because we've seen so many cool ones to have a reference to go back and see all these things, and I don't know, maybe see where they go in the future is really cool. Also cool is the fact that each zine quest 1, 2, and 3 are all gonna have a foreword by cool creators. So Zine Quest 1, Luke Crane, RPG impresario and the founder of Zine Quest, is writing the forward to this, so that's super cool. Next up, Jen Adcock, RPG designer and Zine Quest apologist. Not sure what that means, but sounds cool. And then Marie Enger, comic artist and creator of Casket Land. So yeah, there's a reference. If you had missed zines or just wanted to know what's a zine and kind of dig into it, it seems like a cool resource. Zineography has 5 days to go.
And then the last zine quest that we wanted to talk about is Blood Feud, an RPG about honor, power, and toxic masculinity. So yeah, this was a remarkable spin. You're playing Vikings who are living in a society all about honor. And the game entirely revolves around power, but it only matters when women can see you do it. So all the scenes have to have women in them. And the women then decide which of the men were the least manly that scene, and those men lose honor. And all of the actions are really phrased around or framed around like doing, like, one of the core moves of this game is escalating. Like, there's no calming anyone down move, there's no negotiating move. There is like praise someone, insult someone, escalate, and kill them. Like, it is very focused on that. So I'm really intrigued. Like, this is a kind of an example of what I would love out of zines, of just taking a really focused idea and then exploring it and messing around with something that isn't usually explored in tabletop RPGs. So you got 6 days left to check out Blood Feud.
Okay, and that was the last. Oh yeah, that was the last Kickstarter. Yes,
Mhm.
I'm sorry. I was just like, that concept got me. Oh, I don't like perpetuating bad views of things. It's
interesting.
Problematic, just a little bit. Just a
Yeah,
little
well,
bit.
the idea of that game is to show the cost that toxic masculinity extracts on everyone.
Yeah, to
Alright.
make it visible, which
Mhm.
is interesting.
All right, very interesting. We'll just have to see how that plays. I'm sorry if I made faces, but all right. But now we're gonna go ahead and roll right onto the bundles. Bundles with Derek.
So 2 quick bundles this week.
Yep.
Hero System and Champions 6th edition. They're 2 huge bundles with hundreds of dollars worth of PDFs. I think the simplest way to summarize this is, do you like superheroes? And do you like tabletop RPGs that are renowned for their length, breadth, detail, complication, and the power in building the exact kind of hero you want, right down to probably what kind of shoelaces they wear? Then Champions has got you covered. Like, these are the games that are infamous for stopping bullets, kind of thing. So this is a way to get pretty much all of the PDFs. Hero System is relatively generic. There's a fantasy hero, there's sci-fi hero, stuff like that. And then Champions, the other bundle, is the superhero specific one. So like, these are very classic games. If you like crunchy systems, if you like superheroes, you deserve kind of checking it out, because you can get each of these bundles is a couple $100 worth of content, basically.
All right. Very, very, very cool. All righty then. So hey, guess what? We're gonna go ahead and do a speed round of Kickstarters. Go ahead and kick it off, Derek.
Well, so normal Kickstarters for this week. For 4 days left, we have Centurion. Now, if you have ever played the Duke or Jarl, this is the same game. It's reskinned. There are new pieces and stuff like that. But if you're not familiar with those games, they're really fascinating. Imagine playing chess, but every piece has 2 different move sets that it alternates through back and forth, depending on when you activate it. It's a really, really fascinating game. If you like kind of abstract chess games, I really recommend checking it out. Centurion is basically the Roman themed version of it, but it's an abstract game. The theme is relatively light. The Duke is kind of a generically medieval one. Jarl is the Viking themed one that tied in with the Vikings TV show, basically. So if you like chess, if you like abstract strategy games, I really recommend checking Centurion out. 4 days left, Tuesday, March 4th. The next one is Everway, Mythic role-playing game. This has 5 days left. And it's kind of hard to describe how important or how influential Everway was in indie RPGs back in the day. It was published by Wizards of the Coast, but it was a very extremely indie game for the 90s when it came out. Characters were very loosely defined. There was a whole lot of just follow the narrative, do what the story says, do what makes sense. It came with a pseudo tarot deck that if you had to randomize to see whether you succeeded, you pulled a card from the tarot deck and interpreted it to see whether you succeeded or not. It also had a crazy character creation mechanic, Emma, that I think you in particular would really enjoy, where they had a bunch of cards that just had art on one side and just evocative questions on the other side. And you would just pick 3 to 5 cards that somehow related to your character. It could be a picture of your character. It could be their family. It could be their enemy. Just weird, random stuff. Like, you were really encouraged to just come up with a concept, throw a couple stats, some ideas, and then just go. So it's really interesting to see this come back. They're bringing the cards back. There's a new deluxe tarot deck version that's, instead of like 22 cards, it's a full tarot deck, basically. The rules are dramatically expanded from a couple slim booklets that were in a box to, 2 multi-100-page tomes and stuff like that. So there's a lot of material here. If you really like tying art to your characters, if you really like pseudo tarot stuff in your RPGs, or you want to see where a lot of indie games were inspired from, then I strongly recommend checking Everway out. And you got 5 days left to jump into that campaign.
Mm-hmm. All right, with 7 days left, we have Ares Expedition, the Terraforming Mars card game. So I'm going to go ahead and be honest. My partner, my other half, Mr. B, has already kickstarted, basically bought this game on Kickstarter himself. And anything that is remotely Terraforming Mars, he will gobble up like a like a Pac-Man. It basically is a new standalone game, inspired very much by Terraforming Mars, featuring faster gameplay. It has over 200 beautifully illustrated cards. It really does seem like, I understand if you play Terraforming Mars, you're like, it's already a card deck building game. This takes that concept, but streamlines the play. All the concepts are reworked through the card game, and it's basically supposed to make the game move faster, smoother, simplifies some of the more complicated aspects of Terraforming Mars. It's includes co-op and solo game modes as well, and it can be used. You can also use this campaign to purchase other games, or their other games, and basically their other promo sets. So hey, this is not just for this game itself. It has access to all the other games as well that they happen to create. So with 7 days left, Ares Expedition, the Terraforming Mars card game.
So another project that kind of caught my eye with 7 days left is Crystal Punk. It's a campaign setting for 5th edition. And speaking of cyberpunk, this setting seems to want to take the idea of, what if we ended up at a cyberpunk dystopia, but from a D&D world first? So it's not like, let's take cyberpunk and add magic to it. It's what would have to happen to make a magic setting into cyberpunk. There just seems to be a lot of funky ideas in here. It kind of feels in some ways like the dark future of Eberron almost. There's a weird ethereal soul plane instead of the Matrix, maybe. There's a bunch of new classes. There's a bunch of new races and powers and stuff like that. But magic fueled technology, corporate cults, a wild dystopian city, all that stuff makes me much more excited about playing in your D&D game. So go back this and then run it, and we'll see how much fun we have with it. I'm excited. And then the final project with 10 days left is Design Shogi. So this is another abstract strategy game. If you're familiar with shogi, it's a game from Japan and China, from Asia, basically, that has kind of just presumed is like an Asian chess. Effectively, it's kind of renowned for being complicated and cerebral and hard to get into. And this project is supposed to try to help alleviate some of that by having the moves the pieces make just printed directly on the pieces. And this is also from Mitsuo Yamamoto, whose projects we've featured a number of times before. They're the ceramic maker who makes a lot of abstract games that have kind of a distinct, like, clean and pastel-y style. They don't look like traditional board games in a lot of ways, I think. So this is an attempt to make shogi much more accessible. It also includes variants of like smaller, simpler shogi, where there's one that's like on a 3x3 grid. There's one that's on a 4x7 grid, something like that. A couple of different ways to take that idea and simplify it for folks who want to learn how to get into it, basically. It's just really intriguing to me. They also use the same styles for a way you can play it for free online. So if you've, like me, you watch a bunch of anime, and the smart characters, the smart manipulative mastermind characters, were always playing shogi to show how smart they were. And you're always like, I wish I knew what any of that meant. Now you can maybe find a way into that. So it's got 10 days left, design shogi. And those are our Kickstarters for the week.
Alrighty, folks. Hey, guess what? I want you all to just stick around, because if you do, Gen Con and Ravensburg is going to be highlighting the Princess Bride board game. We join Raul as we show off the Princess Bride. It's going to be starting in like 20 minutes, so stick around. We're going to watch that. And hey, you know what? We're more than just TableTakes here on Gen Con TV. We also do Mondays, board games with the Brothers Murph. They're brothers. They play board games. And so you can see their shenanigans. Wednesday, this game gets dicey. It's about two friends playing overseas. So like all the mechanics of trying to play a board game when you're not physically next to each other. If you want to watch all that kind of fun, go ahead and watch them at 1:30 p.m. Fridays, of course, 2 p.m. You can join us, TableTakes, and then look forward. Also, and what's also really cool that's going to be happening is the Gen Con Spring Showcase. It's going to be 2 days of streams all about new games starting on March 6th and 7th. So, hey, if you guys want to see us very much, I know, hint, some of us at TableTakes are going to be in this event as well. So if you want to go ahead and have more goodness with people like us, who can say no to our beautiful faces, then please go ahead and join that event. Also, hey, if you guys want to, it would be really nice if you follow, subscribe, not only here on Twitch, but also on YouTube as well. You can also join our Discord and just talk to us. We got an official Discord. Hang out. I want to thank you all for being here, and also thank you, Isabella, Emma, and Derek, for joining us. And we're gonna head off because we need to clear the way for the bride, the Princess Bride. Thank you all. Have a good day. Goodbye. Goodbye.
So dramatic.